Here's something nobody wants to admit. Your ex doesn't miss you. They're addicted to the emotional cocaine you accidentally created in their brain. Right now, somewhere out there, someone you used to date is staring at their phone, fighting the urge to text you. It's 2 a.m. and they know they shouldn't, but their hand is trembling. This isn't romance, this is neuroscience. And the most disturbing part? You probably created this addiction without even knowing the exact mechanism. Today, I'm going to reveal why some people can't forget you even when they desperately want to. Let me introduce you to the most powerful psychological weapon in human connection: intermittent reinforcement. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive, slot machines profitable, and your ex unable to move on. When a rat presses a lever and gets food every single time, it learns the pattern quickly, and loses interest just as fast. But when that same rat gets food randomly, unpredictably, sometimes yes and sometimes no, something fascinating happens in its brain. The dopamine doesn't spike when it gets the reward, it spikes in the anticipation. The uncertainty itself becomes the drug. This is exactly what you did to your ex, and here's the uncomfortable truth. The relationships where you were perfectly consistent, always available, always predictable, those are the ones people forget easily. But the relationship where you were sometimes distant, sometimes close, sometimes warm, sometimes cold? That's the one that haunts them at 3 a.m. You became their slot machine. Every text from you was a potential jackpot, and their brains started lighting up not when you responded, but when they waited for you to respond. You weren't playing games, you were accidentally triggering one of the most primitive reward circuits in the human brain. Now let me show you the exact moment the addiction forms. There's a concept in psychology called the extinction burst, and it explains why your ex texted you 15 times after you stopped responding, even though they were the one who left. When a reward suddenly stops coming, the brain doesn't accept it rationally. Instead, it panics and doubles down on the behavior, desperately trying to recreate that dopamine hit. This is why the person who seemed so sure about leaving you suddenly can't handle your silence. You're not witnessing regret, you're witnessing withdrawal symptoms from a neurochemical addiction you didn't even know you were supplying. Here's where it gets darker. The push-pull dynamic doesn't just create addiction, it creates what psychologists call trauma bonding. When someone experiences alternating periods of intense connection and painful distance, their nervous system gets confused. The brain starts associating the pain with the pleasure, the anxiety with the love, the uncertainty with the passion. This is why your ex remembers the relationship as more intense than it actually was. They're not remembering reality, they're remembering the emotional roller coaster, and their brain has rewritten it as the most alive they've ever felt. The instability became the relationship itself. Let's talk about the specific pattern that creates maximum psychological impact: the variable ratio schedule. This is when rewards come after an unpredictable number of attempts, and it's literally the most addictive reinforcement schedule known to psychology. Casinos use it. Social media uses it. And you used it every time you were inconsistently available. When you responded to their text immediately sometimes but took hours other times, when you were affectionate one day but distant the next, you weren't being complicated, you were inadvertently programming their brain to become obsessed with predicting your behavior. Their mind turned you into a puzzle it became desperate to solve. Now here's what most dating advice gets catastrophically wrong. They tell you to be consistent and communicate clearly because it's healthy. And they're right, it is healthy. But healthy isn't addictive. Stable isn't unforgettable. Predictable doesn't make someone's heart race when they see your name on their phone. The uncomfortable truth is that the most psychologically healthy relationship behaviors often create the weakest emotional imprint. This is why your most mature, stable relationship might not be the one your ex thinks about years later. The chaos created a stronger neural pathway than the peace ever could. Let me reveal the exact mechanism that makes someone unable to forget you. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains are hardwired to obsess over unfinished business, incomplete patterns, and unresolved tensions. When a relationship ends with perfect closure, neat explanations, and mutual understanding, the brain files it away cleanly. But when it ends with confusion, mixed signals, and unanswered questions, the brain cannot stop running those simulations, trying to find the pattern, desperate to complete the incomplete. This is why ghosting is so psychologically devastating, and why ambiguous endings create the longest-lasting psychological hooks. You're not haunting them because you were perfect, you're haunting them because you were unresolved. There's a specific moment in the push-pull cycle that creates maximum addiction potential, and most people miss it entirely, the pull-after-pain moment. When you withdraw emotionally or physically, you create a deficit. But here's the critical part: if you then return with warmth and connection, the relief they feel is exponentially more powerful than if you'd just been warm the entire time. It's not the warmth itself that's addictive, it's the transition from pain to relief. You become associated not with happiness, but with the ending of unhappiness. And psychologically, rescuing someone from pain you created is more powerful than never causing pain at all. It's manipulative, it's dark, and it's exactly how attachment addiction forms. Now let's discuss why they always come back at the exact moment you've moved on. It's not coincidence, it's social cue detection. Humans are unconsciously monitoring each other's availability and emotional investment at all times. When you were heartbroken and desperate, your ex's nervous system could sense that security, they knew you were still theirs to lose. But the moment you genuinely detach, something shifts in your behavior, your energy, your digital presence. Suddenly their unconscious brain receives a signal: this resource is becoming unavailable. And just like that, the psychology of scarcity kicks in. They don't want you more because you're better, they want you more because you're becoming unavailable. Loss aversion is a more powerful motivator than desire for gain. Here's the neuroscience that explains everything. When your ex thinks about you, their brain doesn't produce consistent dopamine, it produces dopamine spikes followed by painful drops. This creates a pattern identical to drug addiction. The anticipation of hearing from you floods their system with dopamine. But when you don't respond, or you're distant, cortisol and stress hormones flood in. This neurochemical roller coaster is literally addictive. Their brain starts craving the highs to escape the lows, and you become both the disease and the cure. This is why they can rationally know the relationship was wrong but emotionally cannot let go. They're not fighting their heart, they're fighting their neurochemistry. Let me show you the final, most disturbing piece. The reason this psychological pattern is so powerful is because it mimics our earliest attachment experiences. As infants, we learned that caregivers are sometimes available and sometimes not, and we became obsessed with predicting their behavior because our survival depended on it. When you recreate that unpredictable pattern in adult relationships, you're not just triggering attraction, you're triggering primal survival instincts. Your ex's brain is treating your attention like a resource they need to survive. This is why the pain of losing you feels existential rather than just emotional. You've accidentally activated the same neural circuits that kept them alive as helpless children. The addiction isn't about love, it's about survival programming. So here's what you need to understand: if your ex keeps coming back, it's not because they realized your worth. It's because you created a specific pattern of intermittent reinforcement that their brain cannot stop seeking. The question isn't whether this is fair or right, the question is what you do with this knowledge. You can use it consciously and create relationships based on mutual understanding, or you can recognize when someone is using it on you and walk away. Because once you see the mechanism, you can never unsee it. Every complicated relationship, every can't explain why I miss them, every I know it's toxic but I can't stop, it's all the same neurochemical pattern, playing out in millions of brains right now. The psychology of addiction doesn't just apply to substances. It applies to us.